Whenever you're programming, you're working with different types of data, and there are a few main types of data that you will work with primarily. We'll start by working with literals. It's a value that is either a string, which is like a word, or a number, like 42. There is not a variable, which is a named memory location representing it. The data value and type are obvious because the data represents itself. And I'll show you some examples of these in the next video. We can have a string, which is in quote, and it can be single or double quotes, or you can have a numeric literal, which would just be 2. 2 in quotes is a string. 2 on its own is an integer. An integer means that it's a whole number. And the computer code, the actual ASCII code, how it's represented in bits and bytes of zeros and ones, is different for a string of 2 and the number 2. We couldn't classically add 2 plus 2 as strings. If you were to do that, you'd get 22 because they would combine. Whereas if you added 2 plus 2 without quotes, you would get 4. If we were to check to see if 2 in quotes and 2 not in quotes are equal, it would tell us that they are not. So there are many types of numbers. An integer is a whole number, including negative numbers. A floating point is just a number with a decimal in it. An octal, which is an 8-base number, starts with 0 then the letter O. That's what my little duck here is representing, an octal. We don't really use them much in this class. A hexadecimal code starts with OX. We don't really use that here in Python. When you take the web programming classes, you will use hexadecimal codes to represent colors. If you were to do more scientific work, you could get into scientific notation. Be aware that this is how it presents 1e minus 2, but again, we won't use that in this class. Strings, however, we use constantly. You've already used them. The first program you wrote, Hello World in quotes was a string. Anything between quotes, spaces, characters, exclamation points, numbers, symbols, those are all, if they're between quotes, a string. You can also use escape characters. Escape characters are like our new line character, /n. Then we also have a Boolean, which we will use. That's a simple true-false indicator. And note that they're reserved words, which means you can't use them when you're creating your own names of functions and variables. And they have numeric values. False is 0, true is 1. But when we write true or false as a Boolean, it is essential to use the capital T and the capital F. And these are the basic data types that we work with. And I'll show you some programming code in the next video demonstrating these and how they work.